Can looking at grief like a helpful friend for healing help us find our way back to joy and happiness again? You'll want to hear this incredibly wise and very touching interview that I had with Angela Clement, who tells us about her heartbreaking loss of her husband, Blaine, her husband of 35 years, her very best friend and the love of her life, how Angela used energy healing to help Blaine through his cancer symptoms and help herself through her intense emotions, how Angela's angel readings help people with grief and other issues. There is so much more for you to benefit from and enjoy in this fabulous interview. Come join us. Heartfelt, many blessings. Hi there, and welcome to the Grief and Rebirth podcast. I'm your host, author and trauma survivor Irene Weinberg, here to encourage you wherever you are in your healing journey. In each episode, I chat with incredible grief and trauma specialists, healers, mediums, and celebs, as well as remarkable people who have inspiring healing stories to share. If you're looking for a podcast that's both uplifting and inspiring, you've found it. Let us help you find your joy in life. Hi, everyone. I'm speaking to you today from my studio in West Orange, New Jersey, and I could not be more delighted to have the pleasure of interviewing Angela Clement, who is a certified grief coach, a speaker, a writer, a healer, and the creator of the online series, Awaken Your Soul's Journey. Formerly a school principal and distance learning teacher, Angela's path shifted after an energy healer helped her young son recover from a rare disease. Inspired, she trained in multiple healing modalities, actually in multiple healing energy modalities, to help others find their inner light and heal. In 2021, Angela's husband, Blaine, who was her husband of 35 years, her best friend, and the love of her life, died of colon cancer. In the aftermath, Angela came to understand grief as a spiritual experience that was perfectly, profoundly, and proficiently designed for her to awaken to who she truly is. Determined to support others, she launched her first online summit in 2022, and since then, she has interviewed over 100 experts on grief and spirituality. I was truly honored to be a contributor to one of Angela's transformational summits. Angela is now a certified grief coach, an intuitive healer, a podcast host, and a writer who firmly believes that grief is a pathway to transformation and growth. In her new book titled Awakening Through Grief, Angela supports individuals in finding light in the darkness and discovering the beauty and healing that can come from honoring their emotions. Angela is also one of the 24 contributors to my new book titled Good to the Last Drop, Embracing Your Life's Third Chapter, that invites us to see grief and aging in a new light, living with joy and meaning in life's third chapter. Angela's chapter in Good to the Last Drop, titled Awakening to Grief, poignantly shares her emotional rebirth after her husband Blaine transitioned. I'm looking forward to asking Angela, who will be speaking to us from Saskatchewan, Canada, about her heartbreaking loss of Blaine, her interest in energy healing, how she has experienced grief as a pathway to transformation and growth, her book, Awakening Through Grief, the difference between feeling lonely as a part of grief and being alone, what it means to be an angel intuitive, and much more for what is sure to be an uplifting and enlightening interview with a truly wonderful person. Hi, Angela, a truly warm from the heart welcome to Grief and Rebirth podcast.
Well, hi, Irene, and thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the invite, and I you and I've become friends. And so this is so fantastic to be able to have this time with you. I
It's
just
just
love it.
wonderful. It's
Yeah.
wonderful. And we have so much in common with our stories, which is double the uplifting for all the people who are listening to this, who are going through their stuff. Here we are, two widows who adored our husbands, and through much, we made it through, and we have things to share about that. So and I know your interview is going to inspire and uplift so many people. I'm really thrilled to have you here. And I did your summit. I participated in your summit. Then you participated in my new book, and now we're doing this. So it's a wonderful friendship and sharing. I'm so grateful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been just a delight.
Thank you. So let's start from the beginning, Angela. In 2021, your beloved husband, Blaine, of 35 years, died of cancer. How did you use your knowledge of energy healing to help him with his cancer symptoms and yourself through those intense emotions that you experienced?
Yeah, well, as you said, I had an interest in energy healing before, and I was, dabbling in it and reading about it and playing around with it, but I never really got serious until he got sick. And then I was really searching for what I could do to help him and me through this. And so I I had some energy healers that I knew. And so certainly I enlisted them to help us out. And I also started studying more about energy healing myself. And I ended up taking a program called the Wonder Method.
The
And
Wonder Method, really?
the Wonder Method, which is something a lot of people haven't heard about, but it was maybe just a way that I could hone in my skills a little bit and stay focused on the whole idea of that mindfulness, sitting in meditation and allowing the emotions to move through me. And that's what the energy healers did with me as well. Basically, helped me release all those heavy emotions that were coming up to be healed, because sometimes it's so intense that for you to try to do it yourself is is a lot. And so having them help me through that, help me lift some of that really heavy emotion it made all the difference for me.
Wow. Were you like in meditation, and as things came up, you discussed it? How did that work?
Well, in the Wonder Method, it's you're feeling the energy come through you, and then it's releasing and you're expanding. It's they call it a shift. It's like a shift in energy, because we kind of put ourselves into a little box, and we feel constricted. I mean, when you go through trauma like that, the first response is to cower and hang on for dear life, right? What else do you know how to do? Like, it's just, and the energy healing forces you to feel those emotions and to allow yourself to release it. And so it's, sitting in stillness, what people all talk about, how beneficial meditation is, how beneficial to just sit in silence.
Right.
Just feel your feelings, right? So that was a big part of that program.
That's great. And did you also see mediums and do other things to help you with your healing?
Yeah. Some of the energy healers that I was seeing were mediums as well.
Ah.
And so I did get messages from Blaine early on, and I believe that helped me a great deal as well. Just knowing that he was okay and that, he was still with me and we were still going through this journey together, albeit not physically, spiritually, we're still connected. And so that made a huge difference for me as well.
And it's such a comfort to know that you'll be with him again. Right?
Yes. Yeah. Forward to reconnecting one day once I do what I need to do here.
I'm in this. Once again, we're in the same path. So you moved from deep pain to joy and purpose. And now you understand grief as a spiritual experience that was perfectly, profoundly, and proficiently designed for Angela to awaken to who she really is. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah. So when these emotions come up for healing, they don't feel that good. I mean, we don't want to feel sad and, the pain is just something else. But I've discovered that grief really is a process that is bringing up those emotions for a reason. It's for your healing. And so my whole message is about how grief is not to be avoided. It's not to be feared. It is to be embraced because it is the process. It is the exact process that is going to get you on the other side of that pain. And so to answer your question, it's unique to each of us because each of us has our own journey through grief. Because of the relationship that we had is unique. We are unique as people. We've had unique experiences. There's not one program or or a sequence of events that steps you can take to go through it to make it happen. It's gotta come from you. And our grieving process is natural. It's within us. And it's bringing up those emotions in such a way and in such an order that is best for us, right? And so when things came up for me to experience, those grief bursts that people talk about, that's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for healing to happen. And so I learned to start to embrace those rather than try to push them away or to be upset about the fact that they were happening.
Right. And as you're releasing them, you're saying that no matter who it is, as they release, they will get closer to who they really are and to next steps in a way, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. It's, they talk about the onion and taking off the layers, right? Well, the core of who you are is there. And so once we start to let go of some of the things that are no longer needed, then we do start to see who we really are underneath all of that.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, so much has come out that I wasn't acquainted with until after Saul died and they came forward. And I'm sure you feel the same way, right? So grief also often takes a toll on mind and body. So you claim that self-care played a big role in your healing process. So what simple steps do you recommend that people can take when they're too overwhelmed? And I went through that too, to take care of themselves. I mean, what do you suggest that they do?
Yeah, well, I think it's different for everybody, but there are some big things that seem to help a lot of people. And one of them is getting out in nature and having a walk. And I know that when you're in the depths of grief, that's probably the last thing you feel like doing is walking outside. But it is getting with the trees, getting into the fresh air, putting your feet on the ground, in the grass, and grounding yourself. Anything to do with nature, even just, getting more plants around you can change that energy and change that feel and help you move through. And also, all the things like the hot baths or, the comforting food, those things are all really important as we're moving through that emotion because it's so heavy and it's so painful. And anything we can do to make ourselves feel better and comfort ourselves in that space is really important. And everybody finds their own.
Right.
Yeah.
For self-care. I mean, some people work out, some people go for massages, depending on what it is. And I'm very curious about your angel readings for people. I'm sure that a lot of people listening to us would love to get an angel reading. Tell us how they help people to heal grief and other issues and how that works with you.
Yeah. So, well, I started this many, many years ago. I got a set of oracle cards and I found out that in the evening, sometimes if I was having something I was worried about or concerned about, I would just pull the oracle cards and often they would have messages for me and it would make me feel better. It would give me a different perspective. And so I used them for many, 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 many years. And then it wasn't that long ago that I realized that, oh, I could probably do this for other people too. It's funny how we just don't realize. And so I did. I started to do this for other people and found out that I can do the same thing. I can give them a perspective, a different insight, maybe a different slant on a situation that they're in. And with grief, it can help you point to what you need to do for your healing. Like it can help you focus in on what's most important at that moment. And so I use that. And I also sometimes get messages from loved ones that will come in that are key or important that I can share. And so, yeah, it's just using what I was naturally using for myself and starting to share that with other people now.
That's great. And you talk about reframing our beliefs about grief that helps us navigate grief more gently.
Mhm.
You want to tell people what do they usually believe, and what is best advice to reframe those beliefs to help you get through?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing, and I kind of touched on this a little bit, but it's when we hear the word grief, we it's sadness, right? It's anger. It's sometimes it's jealousy because you're looking around and realizing everybody else has their spouse and you don't have your spouse, and it's there's all of these feelings that come up, and what we do is we tend to say, okay, well, grief is a bad thing. Like nobody wants to go through grief, right? And so, what I'm suggesting is that we kind of change our perspective a little bit and realize that grief is there for us, not against us. It's actually there for our healing, and to look at it in a different light. It's almost like look at it as a medicine. This is a way of moving through this deep pain. And when we reframe it in that way, and we can start to embrace those emotions and start to learn to move them through us, then that joy starts to come back because we're starting to have space to put it, right? So it's just a different way of looking at the whole process of grief.
Right. It's a way what I'm hearing you say, and I think that's what I'm hearing you say, is that it's more of an acceptance that I'm going to have these feelings, but they're going to be step by step leading me to a new way of being, which is so great. And that's along with your book, In Awakening Through Grief. You discuss the difference between grief and mourning, and explain that mourning is key to healing. So it feels like those two concepts are kind of connected. So please describe how outward expressions of grief, like rituals, writing, or creating, can help us move towards healing. And what else would you like the members of our audience to know about your book, Awakening Through Grief?
Yeah. So, well, mourning is different than grieving or grief because it is the outward expression. So we want to express our emotion to get it out. So we often will use different modalities, and people like there's dancers that dance to help express what they're feeling. I was using writing, I was journaling and blogging. Lots of people will listen to music or create music, or they will draw or paint. It doesn't really matter what the expression is, but it's important that we find a way to
Right.
express. Yeah.
Get it out. And is there what would you like everyone to know about your book?
Well, the whole mission of the book is to give people hope. Because when I first lost Blaine, I looked around and I really felt like I didn't know a lot about grief to start out with. And also that there wasn't a lot out there for me to hang on to. And when the messages came in for me, when I was searching, I kept hearing that, grief is something that you will just learn to live with. You will learn to carry it. You will, and it'll just be with you. That's the way. And I just couldn't accept that. In fact, I didn't want to live if that was the way this was going to be, because that is just too heavy.
Right.
So what I did was I kept searching until I found somebody who didn't say that. So I met a lady by the name of Julie Clough, and through her quote, which is, some people will say that you grieve for a lifetime. I choose otherwise. I choose the path from hurt to hope to healing every day. That's her quote. Yes. And so that led me to her on Facebook, and that led me to do some work with her and coaching. And so with the book, it is really helping people see that there is hope, that you can move through the grief and you can heal and you can find joy and fulfillment on the other side of that. And it's not, I would say now, I'm on just past the 3-year mark, and I don't feel that heavy sadness or sorrow. It doesn't follow me through everything that I do. In fact, it's almost a fuel for me it inspires me. I want to do more, to help people. And so the book is all about my journey. It's how I moved through grief. And I share all the exercises, journal prompts, energy healing techniques that are really easy to do. I share all of those things in there for people so that they can, start moving through their grief and to live a life that is fulfilling and joyful again.
It sounds like a great book if you don't know what to do for your loved one who is grieving. It sounds like a wonderful book to gift to people, to get them started, to uplift them that they're going through a tunnel, but there is light at the end of that tunnel.
Yeah.
Right? So also I want to ask you, you talk about the difference between feeling lonely as a part of grief and being alone, and that there are tools available that can help with those feelings of loneliness. What have you found?
Yeah, so I did go through a really tough time. I used to love my alone time. When I had my family and my busy life and I got an evening to myself, I always just cherished that. Or I had a day to myself, I cherished it. But when I lost Blaine and I had all of this alone time, it didn't feel good to me. And I felt so alone in everything that I went to do. Every time I had to do something like, winterize the camper or, pay for insurance or do things that I didn't normally do, I felt so alone. And I knew I wasn't alone because I knew I had guides and helpers and all those people with me, but I hadn't made the connection with them. And so the key, I think, to this is not only connecting with your guides or your spirit partners, but it is to connect with yourself. It is to connect with the person that you are inside, because you got you. In the end, no matter what happens, you don't need to rely on other people necessarily when you've got yourself, when you've learned how to love yourself and to take care of yourself. Now you're no longer alone.
Yeah, you've got your, well, as a grief coach, I'm sure you take people through that to help them with that process, right?
Yes, this is part of what I do. Yeah.
And if they're feeling alone by having a grief coach like you, they're not so alone anymore. They have that support that is so important for them.
Absolutely.
Right. So you share about how you've experienced grief as a pathway to transformation and growth, which we see that you've done and you're still doing. And you explain that all we do in life is for us, not against us, no matter how bad we think it is. People are listening to this and saying, really, Angela? This other awful thing I just went through is for me, not against me? You got to explain this to me. I mean, because I think it was terrible, right? So how did you learn about that, and how do you handle that difference in attitude?
Yeah. So, I would never be doing what I'm doing today had I not lost Blaine. And I will preface that with, it was a horrible experience. There's nothing I would wish on anyone to lose a spouse. That is just really hard. But as I work through this journey, and I'm working through it with him, right? So he's with me. He's guiding me, supporting me, helping me, bringing me opportunities. And so we're doing this journey together. And so then I started to realize that everything that happens to me, there's a lesson in it. There's something in it that I need to learn, to find out more about who I am, to find out, to strengthen me, to build understanding, more understanding about the world around me and what I love and what I don't. It's like redefining yourself, rediscovering yourself through these experiences. And so every time something happens to me now that's like, I don't think is right, I start to search for, the meaning in that, because I truly believe that there is. And I know that people go through a lot of awful things. And I've seen losses, multiple losses, people who lose children. It is so hard. But in that, even in that, there is a way through. There is a way to build that meaning and take it with you and to build a new life, really, going forward.
And you can help them navigate that, of course.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
through your book, Awakening Through Grief, your summit and your support group, you create a space for people to come together, which is another way you help people to heal. So even if it's not a one-on-one coaching, you've got a support group. Why is community so important in the grieving process, and how has it helped you? How has it helped you personally? And would you like to share a special story of healing from your group, your support group?
Sure. Yeah.
Like give us a success story.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I mean, there's several. So when I started the community, it was after I took my grief coaching certification and I had ran this summit and I had all these people. And of course, they signed up on my email list, and what was I to do? Right. And so I decided that I would start this group, and just every 10 days on Zoom, we meet. And I found out that just getting together and sharing what we were going through and sharing the resources that we were using just became a fuel for all of us. And we were able to acknowledge each other in our grief, which is, I think, is another really important thing, is that you recognize someone else's pain because you've felt it, right? And you can share it. And then they realize that they're not alone in that they too have had that experience. And then you share what you're doing to move through it. How are you moving through that? How is life changing for you? And so there's a big spirituality piece along with this support group that I've developed. And they have supported me a great deal through my process. I would say every bit as much as or more than I have supported them. And so it's been this wonderful space where we've really built strong connections. There's a core group that have been there with me really for the past 2 years. They have been there through thick and thin. And some of the stories, one of the people has written her own books now, is doing a lot of work. Another person who has become a dear friend of mine, she's helping friends and family with similar circumstances. She's, and she's just doing it naturally, right? Because as we heal, we just naturally find out who we really are, and we end up doing things that we never knew that we would be doing, right? It's in the plan. We just don't know it. I actually have a member in my group that I just went to see who, he was in the depths of despair.
Oh my goodness.
Now he's coming to the group all the time, and he's been a delight. He actually developed some psychic gifts too. So he's been able to do some mediumship for the group. So it's been just
fantastic.
Yeah, it's just been fantastic. It really has. And it's been one of the things I'm most proud of when I think about this journey and what I've done is that support group.
I have found, and I'm sure that you would say the same, that some of my friendships, after my husband transitioned, some of my friendships fell away, but there are new rich relationships that kind of came into my life to take their place because I'm in a different place. So you need people who meet you in your new place. Would you say that that is true for you
Oh,
also?
absolutely. Yeah. And at first it's devastating. And everybody, I think, feels that because you have the people that you were your support system and now they're not. And why aren't they? And I think that first reaction is like, well, what? You know? But then you start to recognize, and once you start to step out, that's the other thing. You can't cower in your house. You have to kind of step out a little bit, even if it's on Zoom, to start to meet new people. Then you start to bring in these new friendships. And you're right. Those become your friends. They're huge support people.
Yeah, and you're on that same page with each other, right? So,
Hmm.
right. Tell everyone about your summits, Angela, and then I want to get to some of the other things that you do for people because you have so much, and it's such a source for people. There's so many things you do. So first, tell us about your summit, and then we can go to your other services that promote healing and guidance and transformation. I mean, you've got grief coaching one-on-one. You've got grief coaching we've been talking about in a group. You've got discovery sessions. We know about your angel readings. You've got an Awaken Your Soul's Journey on Grief. We're going to talk about your summits and just let it rip. Tell them all about all the ways Angela can help them.
Yeah. So I did 4 summits and I still have them. People can access them. So each summit has about 25 interviews in it. And each summit was focused on something that I needed at the time, really,
That's
So,
interesting.
yeah. So they're like sequential in my healing. And so I think they would be helpful for others too to go through. And so I have them available. And people can contact me and ask for them and I can give them a way to access those. I transitioned into the podcast since then. And so since January, I've just been doing that and kind of getting my feet into that and starting to, getting a feel for it. And so I may go back to summits. I don't know. But for now, that's kind of what I'm doing. And so, yeah, people
What
can.
what are your discovery sessions?
So the discovery sessions really are for people to have an opportunity to spend some time with me and find out if I would be a good fit for them as a coach, because I believe that it's really important to resonate with the person that you're working with. The coaching service isn't as, it's important, but it's not as important as you having that connection with the person that you're working with and feeling comfortable. So I offer that as an opportunity for people to meet with me. And then we can see whether they would be a good fit for the program.
I think that's a great idea because then they can talk with you and really see how they feel they can get help. Some people probably need the one-on-one because maybe they're not as extroverted or they're in so much pain. And others need the comfort, right, of community and other people and all of that. I can totally understand that. You provide both. And do you have a special offer for our Grief and Rebirth podcast audience today?
I do. So my book is launching tomorrow. And so I'm going to offer for everybody first chapter for free. You can read it, download it off my website, which is healingenergy.world. You can go there and under the tab books, you can find Awakening Through Grief. And then you can download that chapter. And if you feel that it's going to help you, then certainly order the book on Amazon because it's available. And that link is there as well. And then all of my other resources are on that website as well. All my meditations are there. The opportunity to do my angel readings, the grief group get together, that support group we were talking about, that's free. So you can sign up for that. And I'll give you notifications when we're having those meetings. And with that support group, I keep notes. And so I put those on my website as well. And so if you want to access those, you can look back at what we've talked about for the last 2 years, and all the resources that we've brought forward are available. And that's all free too. So it might be, I know a lot of people find that really comforting as well.
It's so generous of you. That's really lovely. And let me ask you this. When someone is in the depths of grief, it can be hard to imagine life without that constant pain. We both know that. What advice do you give to people who feel like they'll never find joy again after loss? And a lot of people feel that way. This is it. This is where I'm going to be the rest of my life in this hole.
And the message is out there. that's the other thing, that you hear that. People say that. And there are people who have been grieving for a long time, and they will tell you, I'm still missing him. And we all have our own timeline that we work through, but sitting and waiting for it to go away isn't going to work. You actually have to be active in the healing process. And so accessing a coach or, doing more research on how you can move through grief and just keep searching. Don't give up and think that you're going to be in this space forever, because that's just not what God intended.
Absolutely.
That's not what is supposed to be happening. And be careful with your beliefs, check them. Do you believe that? Because that's what I had to do. Do I believe that? Do I believe that I'm going to feel this way forever? And if not, then how can I change how I feel?
Yeah, that's so true. A lot of people feel like now I've had this loss and I can't move and I'm frozen in time forever. And it's really, I remember feeling that way.
Yeah.
And then having to give myself permission when something wonderful happened and I was feeling happy. But the truth is those emotions can exist together. One doesn't cancel out the other, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're in the depths of grief, you really do think you can't come out. There is that, it's something with the mind that puts you into that space, and it's hard to break free. And so that's why I love your podcast. I love what you're doing, because that message is coming out again and again. You don't have to stay there. And so keep searching.
Yeah. And there are people out there like Angela who can help you. And I could not have done it for myself without people who helped me. I think it's wonderful to have you here. You are such an admirable role model for turning grief into a pathway for transformation and growth and renewed purpose through your unique blend of personal experience, spiritual insights, and practical tools. Angela, I cherish our personal connection, and I thank you from my heart for this uplifting and enlightening interview on Grief and Rebirth podcast today. It's a blessing. As I like to say, to be continued. Thank you, Angela, and many blessings.
Same to you.
Thanks for tuning in to Grief and Rebirth. Remember, you can dive deeper into everything we've discussed by checking out the show notes and all past episodes at ireneweinberg.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Irene S. Weinberg on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and wherever you love to hang out online. Plus, we're on YouTube, so be sure to subscribe and never miss a video. For those of you listening, you'll find links to my 2 books, Good to the Last Drop and They Serve Bagels in Heaven, in the show notes. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see those books listed right above, so don't miss out. And here comes a special treat. If you sign up for Audible as a first-time user using my link, which you can find in the show notes, you can get They Serve Bagels in Heaven for free. And finally, people often ask me what I read, what I use, and what I recommend for healing and self-care. So I've carefully curated a compilation of those items to share with you. You can head over to kit.co/grief and rebirth to check them out. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, many blessings.